Today we'll be learning about the rotator cuff. This is the right humerus and this is the right scapula. For understanding the rotator cuff, we need to learn the features on the upper end of the humerus and the major features of the scapula. So what you see here is the right humerus. You can see a smooth surface and this is called the head of the humerus. This will be directed medially. Around the head of the humerus, you can see the anatomical neck of the humerus. Outside this, you can see rough features in which you can see two prominent tubercles, and these tubercles are the lesser tubercle that is directed anteriorly and the greater tubercle that is directed laterally. So in my right humerus, you have the head of the humerus facing medially, the lesser tubercle facing anteriorly, the greater tubercle facing laterally. Between the lesser and the greater tubercle, you have an intertubercular sulcus, also called as the bicipital groove. So this upper end of the humerus will articulate with the glenoid fossa of the scapula like this. So this is the orientation of the scapula. Now we'll go into the features of the scapula that you need to know to understand the rotator cuff. Scapula is almost a triangular bone. This is the upper border and this is the lower angle. This is called the subscapular fossa. The subscapular fossa will be directed anteriorly. If I just tilt the scapula like this and you are looking at the scapula from the lateral aspect, you can see a shelf-like projection from the posterior surface of the scapular blade. This projection is called the spine of the scapula. Above the spine of the scapula, you have a relatively smaller fossa and this is called the supraspinous fossa. Below the spine of the scapula, you have a little more larger fossa. This is called the infraspinous fossa. So if I review all this, you have the subscapular fossa, the supraspinous fossa, the infraspinous fossa. These names are useful because these names hold the corresponding named muscles. So we can correlate these fossa with the named muscles in the rotator cuff. Now we're going to articulate these two bones like how the shoulder joint will be formed, and this is called the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint. The rotator cuff is related to the shoulder joint. So from the subscapular fossa, you have the origin of subscapularis, which will run in front of the shoulder joint and trace towards the lesser tubercle and get attached there. So from here the muscle originates, converges, runs in front of the shoulder joint and attaches to the lesser tubercle. The next muscle that we considered was the supraspinatus muscle. The supraspinatus muscle runs from the supraspinous fossa on the dorsal surface above the spinous process. From there it runs above the shoulder joint and attaches to the upper facet on the greater tubercle. Next, we are going to see the posterior aspect to get a better idea about the infraspinatus muscle. So from the infraspinous fossa that you see here, you have the infraspinatus taking origin, running behind the shoulder joint and going and attaching towards the next facet on the greater tubercle. Next, you have the lateral border of the scapula, in which you have an upper two-third from where you have the teres minor taking its origin, and it runs more inferior but behind the shoulder joint and attaches to a third facet on the greater tubercle of the humerus. So next we are going to learn how these muscles will contract to cause each of the movements. This is a subscapularis muscle going and attaching towards the lesser tubercle. When this muscle contracts, it will cause a medial rotation. Medial rotation of the humerus is occurring on a longitudinal axis that runs from the superior to inferior part. The medial rotation of the humerus will cause the anterior surface of the humerus to tilt medially. Next we are going to learn about the orientation of the supraspinatus muscle. The supraspinatus muscle takes origin from the supraspinous fossa. It runs underneath the acromion process, above the shoulder joint, and it leads its way towards the upper facet of the greater tubercle. So if you look from front, and if we imagine that this muscle contracts, okay, when this muscle contracts, it will cause abduction of the shoulder joint. Conventionally, it is considered to be an initiator of abduction. 0 to 15 degrees of abduction is caused by supraspinatus muscle contraction. Next, we will learn how the infraspinatus and teres minor will act when these muscles contract. The infraspinatus muscle takes origin from here, runs behind the shoulder joint and attaches to the second facet below the supraspinatus facet. When this muscle contracts, it will cause a lateral rotation of the shoulder. Remember that you are looking at the posterior view. So this will cause a lateral rotation of the shoulder. In lateral rotation of the shoulder, again, the rotation of the shoulder, the humerus is occurring in the longitudinal axis, in a superior inferior landing axis. The teres minor contraction is also similar. It takes origin from the upper 2/3 of the lateral border of the scapula. It runs more inferior to the infraspinatus tendon and it attaches to the third facet on the greater tubercle. When that muscle contracts, it is a weak lateral rotator of the shoulder or the humerus. Now we are going to learn how we can test the medial and lateral rotators of the shoulder or the medial and lateral rotators of the humerus. For that, we have Dr. Nitin here, who is going to simulate to us as a patient. So first we have to flex the elbow. This is done to eliminate the supination and the pronation effect. Once you do this, supination and pronation cannot mask, so that we will get a pure medial and lateral rotation testing. So first I will ask him to do a medial rotation of the humerus or the medial rotation of the shoulder. So that is medial rotation. What happens is, this is the orientation of the humerus, this is the long axis and this is the anterior surface. When he does a medial rotation, the humerus will rotate on its own long axis like this. Please note at the lesser tubercle, can you do that medial rotation once more? Please note at the lesser tubercle, which was directed anteriorly, that will move more and more medially when you do a medial rotation. Next we are going to do a lateral rotation. Can you do a lateral rotation? I'll keep the humerus like this to get you an orientation. The humerus will rotate like this. This is lateral rotation of the humerus. Please note that a flexion of the elbow is necessary to demonstrate medial and lateral rotation. Now I can test the power of medial and lateral rotators by giving resistance against this movement. Can you do medial rotation once more against my resistance? Yes, good, thank you. Can you do lateral rotation once more? Yes, thank you. So that is medial and lateral rotation power testing. You can also do medial rotation testing by two named tests. The first test is called belly press test. When you do a belly press action, you are actually doing a medial rotation of the humerus. Another named test is, can you please turn to this side? Another named test is, you can keep the hand behind the trunk of the lower part of the trunk, and from this position, can you please lift your hand? Yes, that is called the lift off test or the Gerber's test. Here again, you are doing a medial rotation of the shoulder. So these are the named tests by which you can test the medial rotators' power and their action.